All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I understand for the past couple of days, folks have continued to trickle in throughout. We'll get started. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, 3 years in taking stock of OZ activity around the Commonwealth. My name is Jay Beekman, and I'm Director of Investments at Opportunity Virginia, the Commonwealth's Opportunity Zone Marketplace. As some of you may know, today's workshop is the third in a series of 4 Opportunity Virginia webinars. We had originally intended to host a large gathering similar to the one that we did in Charlottesville last year, but Mother Nature had different plans. And so this series of webinars is our COVID-friendly alternative to that. If you have attended either or both of the first 2 workshops, first, thank you very much for being an Opportunity Virginia superfan. It's much appreciated. And second, we sincerely hope that you found value in those, and we hope that you'll find value in today's as well. The 4th workshop, so coming after this one, is being held next Thursday, November 19th, as part of the Virginia Governor's Housing Conference, and is about affordable housing and opportunity zones. You can find more information about that or sign up at our website, opportunityvirginia.org, and I'll also drop a link in the chat function here. Just a few housekeeping items before I pass this off to our moderator. First, today's webinar is being recorded. So next week, we will send around an email to everyone who registered, and there will be links to all 4 of the workshops, the webinars that we're doing as part of this series. Second, if you want to ask our panelists or our moderator a question during the webinar, please use the Q&A function that you see down there. Do not use the chat function. You can use the chat function to communicate otherwise, but if you would like to submit a question for the panelists to consider to potentially respond to, just be sure to use that Q&A box throughout this hour. And then just last thing, everybody, all the attendees, everybody except the folks you see on the screen have been muted. So with that, I'll hand it over to our moderator, Aaron Thomas. Aaron is the Director of Economic Development and Opportunity Zones at Accelerator for America. He spent the majority of his career in investment banking, where he traded equity derivatives and facilitated equity transactions. More recently, he worked in middle market private equity before pivoting to the public sector, first as a fellow in the California Senate and now with the Accelerator. He's a graduate of Harvard College and received his MBA from Stanford's Graduate School of Business. So that's some pretty incredible experience, and those educational credentials, they're super fancy, but truth be told, the most impressive thing about Aaron is that the Opportunity Virginia team voted him unanimous MVP of our launch event last year. So our team was really thrilled when we got the reigning champ of OZ panel moderation to lead this discussion. And this discussion is a follow-up of sorts to the panel that Aaron did last year. So with that said, I'll shut up. Aaron, over to you to get the conversation started.
Jay, thank you for that. Thanks for having me. I don't know how I feel about you lying to these people publicly, but we'll roll with it for now. Thanks everybody for joining us, for taking the time. As Jay said, I lead an organization called Accelerator for America. We do a lot of opportunity zone focused work nationally, among other things, economic development, transit, infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. But the goal with our opportunity zone work is to provide tools, organizing mechanisms, technical assistance, research, et cetera, to cities who are looking to make sense of opportunity zones. And so that was the kind of capacity in which I got to know Jay and the Opportunity Virginia team, and got the opportunity to travel to Charlottesville last year. Wish we could this year, but glad to see you all virtually anyway. So the goal, as Jay mentioned in this conversation, is kind of follow up on what has happened over the last year in opportunity zones. Now we're kind of, last year when we had this conversation, we were like in this kind of starting phase where we had finally gotten some regulations, people were looking at it, there was some excitement around it. And now we're past that point where everybody kind of knows what's happening and people have made some sense of it. A lot of cities have mobilized themselves, including the ones represented here on your screen. but the world has obviously changed since then. The capital, the way that capital has moved, what attracts capital has changed dramatically since then as well. And so I just wanted to follow up with these folks, Ron and Peirce, who were on the panel that you might have seen last year, and then Ellen, who we're really happy to have join us this year. And so I think my hope is, of course, to foster a somewhat free-flowing conversation. I have some questions that I'll ask our panelists, but if there's stuff that either we miss or that you're curious about or whatever, please hit us in the Q&A, and I'll try to make sure to pepper that in, and then towards the end, there's going to be a dedicated Q&A section as well. So if I don't get to something, let me know. To start, I would love to have each of you, of course, introduce yourselves, but also talk about your communities. So I'd love for those of us that don't know your communities well, for you to paint a picture of what you would want or what you do want Opportunity Zone Capital to do in your community. What's the profile? What was the capital allocation profile in your community pre-Opportunity Zones or before the efforts that you're undertaking now? And you know, I put in kind of our Q&A thing, theory of change, but the idea is like, who do you want this capital to help? What's going on in your town that really would attract or should attract Opportunity Zone Capital? And so, Ellen, if you don't mind, I'll bring you in first and ask you to start us off. You're on mute.
Okay, thank you all for having me here today. I'm Ellen Tolton. I'm with the City of Bristol, Virginia. I'm the Community Development Specialist here. I've been here for about 4 years. Prior to that, I worked for a community action agency. I did program development for basically community and economic programs. I'm a Northern Virginia transplant, but I've been in this area for about 25 years and really have come to appreciate it very much. So a little bit about Bristol. I'm sure a lot of you relate Bristol with the Bristol Motor Speedway. But aside from that, we're located on the border between Virginia and Tennessee. We, which some of you may know, we actually share a state line that runs through our downtown district. Bristol's located right along Interstate 81. We have, Bristol is served by 4 different interchanges. We're linked to Knoxville, Atlanta, and other southern cities, as well as the rest of northern United States. We have many community assets to recommend us. We have a thriving downtown. We have events and festivals. We have the birthplace of Country Music Museum. We have 2 new boutique hotels. The Bristol's been open, I would say, going on 2 years now, and then the Sessions just opened in the last year. And we also have a historic train station that we've been trying, and we're hoping to someday bring back passenger rail to Bristol. Right now, the city's fortunes are based on tourism and the many outdoor recreational activities we have to offer. As a lot of other localities, though, we've taken a big hit with COVID and are trying to manage through this as best as we can. Some of the other things we have going on in the city, we have an aging housing stock. We also have this is the biggest challenge for Bristol, and I'll probably bring it up again. We have very limited undeveloped space for new development, which means we have to rely pretty heavily on redevelopment activities. And I'm going to speak a little bit later. This was the impetus for a proposed market study needs assessment that we are requesting, and I'll probably talk a little bit more about that later. So anyway, basically, Virginia has 2 of its 4 census tracts are opportunity zones. And I will tell you that all 4 of our census tracts were eligible to be opportunity zones. So that gives you an idea of the distressed demographics we have throughout Bristol. Our population is just under 17,000. It has been slowly decreasing the last few years. Our land area is just under 13.5 square miles, and it serves predominantly rural area. So I think we're a lot smaller than the counterparts that we're going to be that I'm going to be talking with. And again, I'm bringing this up again. Our biggest development challenge is we have limited property and vacant land available for development. We cannot annex, and so that limits even investment for opportunity zones quite a bit. Before opportunity zones, we had very limited incentives to offer. Basically, we have enterprise zone incentives through DHCD. And other than that, we could offer real estate rehabilitation tax exemption. That's the only local incentive that we had available. And as far as what we're looking for our community and to utilize opportunity zones, we want better housing choices and newer housing stock. We want increased investment from outside and also nurture our local investors. We hope to generate future investment, provide better paying jobs for our residents, et cetera.
Thanks, Ellen. That's exactly the kind of picture I'm hoping to paint. I think I have a much better sense for Bristol. I guess I'll go clockwise on my screen. So Peirce, if you could do the same.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm Peirce Macgill. I'm Assistant Director of Economic Development for the City of Harrisonburg. I've been here almost 5 years after being up in the Baltimore area in economic development for 15 years. JMU grad, so I've just always loved it here, and this job gave me an opportunity to make this my permanent home. So, for those who don't know much about Harrisonburg, I'm sure you know James Madison University. So we are a colleges town, and I say plural because in addition to JMU, we also have Eastern Mennonite University, and just on our southern border is Bridgewater College. So the institutions of education are our driving force. We're also a regional retail center for the Valley. We have the big box stores, the mall, probably most importantly, the Costco. So we have a large draw that people come into Harrisonburg for the retail side of our economy. And we also have a strong manufacturing sector. So we're pretty fortunate to be diverse there with anchor institutions, manufacturing, retail, office. We do, of course, have challenges. Now COVID and building back the economy is our biggest challenge. COVID was like a brick wall. Things were really cooking here, and we got a double whammy with COVID. I mean, not only did we have the economy decline like everyone did, but so much of our population are college students, and a lot of them were sent home. So we lost a lot of our consumers here in the city with JMU students and Eastern Mennonite students, Bridgewater students, being sent home in March and not coming back until this fall. So that really hurt our restaurant industry, our retail industry. And of course, tourism is so big for us. That has been a major challenge in our hospitality industry, especially fall. I mean, fall in the Shenandoah Valley, it doesn't get more beautiful than that. So it's a huge draw. And then, JMU football weekends, JMU homecoming, just these are major weekends for our businesses that have been lost to COVID. So like most of us, that's our biggest challenge. And looking forward, what will office space look like moving forward because of COVID? A lot of these folks that have gone to work from home probably are not coming back into the private sector market. So I think that's going to present challenges for all of us in filling vacant office space, and may have to get creative for that. Another challenge we have is housing costs. And it was kind of surprising coming from Baltimore. I was expecting significantly lower housing costs than I enjoyed in Baltimore, and really is not that much of the case. The housing is still pretty expensive here in the area. The rental market is so strong because of students. Rental housing can be expensive. So that's a challenge for us to work on building our housing supply to have more affordable housing. And then finally, kind of as was just mentioned, we're a city and not a lot of land. So we got to figure out what's the best way to redevelop. What's the best use of land, what used to be called smart growth. So especially in our downtown area, we want to preserve these beautiful buildings. So how can we take on these projects that are that much more expensive in the redevelopment realm, but also maintain our character? Kind of talked a little bit about the opportunities that we have, and really is the strength of this market and the diversity of our economy. I mean, to have an anchor institution like JMU is an amazing. I mean, they're not going anywhere. And so if we were an auto factory town, we'd be a GM town. We're a JMU town, but there's never a fear that, the auto plant's going to close off, and JMU is going to be there. They might, rise and fall a little bit with student population, but more or less we have blessed with such a strong anchor institution in our education sectors. And as I said, with manufacturing, that helps spread out the quality of jobs and the opportunities for our citizens. So I do think we have a good chance of achieving our goals. And coming to your questionnaire and on theory of change, I think it really does come down to the basic mission of economic development. And that's our theory of change. How can we attract family living wage jobs to the city to improve the financial situation of our citizens? That's what it comes down to. I think opportunity zones are that extra little carrot to get us towards that goal. And I look forward to jumping into more as we move forward.
Thanks, Peirce. Ron, you're up.
Well, it's great to be back with you again, Aaron and Peirce, and welcome Ellen to the group. A great day, because now that Aaron's reached that superstar status, I'll celebrate with that. Okay, about Virginia, most people know about Virginia Beach. We're about 500,000 people. We've got most of the people living in the northern half of Virginia Beach, and on the southern half, we have agricultural area that is really zoned to be an agricultural industry down there. Our challenges with this were recognized in the very beginning. We recognize that with 500,000 people in half of our area, and this half area zoned for the suburban and urban lifestyle, you either go vertical with redevelopment, or you go in a different direction. We do invite development in a vertical direction, but we're also primarily focusing in upon businesses, qualified opportunity zone businesses. And this has been a really, really challenging thing to move on. There's a couple reasons why we focused on that. One I stated was that the limited land, just like Harrisonburg and Bristol, has kind of constrained us. But we also have a pretty large population of people who have either a high school diploma, GED, or less. We're around 42% of those the people in our community who have that kind of an educational status. Well, when you have that kind of educational status, it helps the tourism industry, it helps the retail industry, and it helps the accommodation industry to move forward with their plans. But part of the social unrest that we're seeing, I think, is associated with these income levels. So by offering and trying to get qualified opportunity zone businesses in our area, we think that we're going to be able to overcome some of those challenges that we're facing now. We've got some pretty exciting stuff going on. We didn't limit ourselves to just, stating that we have opportunity zones, and if you're interested, come and see us. We built a website, we've held open houses, we've published articles in newspapers, and we've done quite a number of things. But some of the more exciting things are associated with our opportunity zones. We have 8 in total. One of the opportunity zones is the home and the host for our submarine fiber cable from Europe, as well as from Central and South America. And so we think that this is a catalyst for data centers, and we're hoping that the opportunity zone investors will see that as an opportunity to do something in our corporate landing business park, which is our opportunity zone. We just built a brand new sports center in our what we call our CTAC opportunity zone, which is near our convention center, and it is state of the art. It's a beautiful facility. So we're hoping that more facilities like that will be encouraged in that area, and it is adjoined and adjacent to what we call our Vibe district, which is our creative district. So there's a lot of exciting things happening there. And then another opportunity zone that we're really proud of is called Burton Station. We started building infrastructure in there. We've got roads, utilities that had never been there. And what it's done is it opened up an opportunity for anybody who wants to go in there with, it's shovel-ready land to develop that land into something really unique and experiential if they wanted to. We have a railroad that runs through there. It goes straight to the Norfolk International Terminals, and it's just a prime spot because it's also located right next door to the Norfolk International Airport. So we've got some things that we've been doing, like biomedical parks, things of that nature, to try to help catalyze the qualified opportunity zone businesses that we would like to see come into the area. Some really kind of interesting things that have happened, is we'll talk about a little bit later, I'm sure, is that we're kind of evolving in our marketing program. You know, this is really for localities, a marketing strategy that needs to be implemented. We don't have much administrative control over what happens with opportunity zones, other than we've designated them. You kind of let laissez-faire take over development. But I think that what we're trying to do is we're trying to look at new ways to market these, because quite frankly, the opportunity zone activity in Virginia Beach seems to be slow. We know it's happening here. It's mostly with family trusts who have small investments. And so we'd like to see some bigger companies come in and do some really grand things in our area. So that's a little bit about Virginia Beach.
Thanks, Ron. Can you I'm going to take it kind of back around, but I want to stay with what you're talking about, kind of what you were hoping to catalyze, or hoping that the development that's already undertaken would catalyze for opportunity zone capital. How's that gone? You know, I mean, I think that I imagine a year from now when we were seeing that, what you wanted to happen, and then COVID coming, 4 or 5 months later changed everything. But do you see promise on the horizon there? If people engaged on that front, how have folks reacted to that? Particularly around opportunity zones on the stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah, Peirce said it best about COVID. COVID has stopped just about everything going on, but we do see that we're going to have a bright horizon that's ahead of us with these projects. I mean, it's a bad thing that COVID happened, and we all have sympathy for families who lost loved ones, but we also recognize it as an opportunity to do some unique things that would allow us to catalyze these opportunity zones. So it gave us a moment to rest and to try to do some exceptionally interesting things that would try to entice opportunity zone businesses to our area.
Thanks. Peirce, kind of same question to you, which is, how's it gone, right? We had the conversation last year. What's changed? What hasn't? I imagine your answer is going to be similar, which is COVID stopped everything. But kind of, is there anything in motion or process? How have folks reacted?
Yeah, better than I think most people would guess, fortunately. And that's also been the weird thing about COVID. Manufacturing has kind of just chugged along all right when other sectors have been decimated. So I think we have still seen continued activity. I think without COVID, we would have seen more. But on the project side, it's still going well. We have 5 opportunity zone projects. We have 2 opportunity zones here in Harrisonburg, and I think we were in the same boat as Ellen. It was really up to us which part of the cities. The whole city had the potential. Being a college town, our median income gets skewed, so it comes off in the numbers as a very low income area, but that's because college students are counted towards that income, and most of those college students have 0 or very little income. So that can work to our advantage in these kind of zone designations where the whole city had the potential. So our projects, we have one new one since we last spoke. Another project has actually expanded since we last spoke, and another project has been completed since we last spoke. So I'd say it's kind of been nice. The activity has continued to a decent degree. All told, at this point, we're at about $12 million in investment in those projects. And then just a final point, I think part of what COVID did, it took our eye off the ball completely. We're a 2-person shop in Harrisonburg. And so for 6 months, it was, how do we keep these businesses from going under? And that was our 100% focus, and opportunity zones just were not.
Can you expand, I think we might have time to talk about it later, but since you mentioned it, can you brief the folks watching on the projects that you're talking about, the ones that are in motion, the ones that have gone well? I'd love to hear more about what was successful there.
Yeah, so it all kicked off with a downtown. A lot of this activity has been around downtown. That's where people want to be. And so it's kicked off with the downtown project with a historic tax credit rehabilitation project, which, you know, it's so expensive. Again, the numbers just weren't going to quite work. And then opportunity zones came onto the radar, and it made the numbers work. I mean, it truly was the difference in the go signal for this project. So that'll be half of it's done. That's the one project I mentioned has expanded. So first floor retail office, second floor residential. He went on to purchase the building that is attached to his adjacent to continue on first and second floor development. Then the new one, which is pretty exciting, was an empty warehouse, probably been 2 years empty. Had a small retail portion and then a warehouse portion. Not the prettiest thing you'll ever want to see, and more in outside of downtown, which is where we really love to see the activity. The downtown's already so strong. So a fella who came to one of the seminars purchased the building, and just a few months ago signed his first tenant, which is going to be a light manufacturer, which is exactly what we want, you know, the better wage type jobs. So we're very excited about that project. Another one is an existing office light manufacturer. But again, the numbers just become more attractive with Opportunity Zone, where they want to, down the road, put in residential around this project on the parcel. And then the finished project was another phase 3. The first 2 phases were done pre-Opportunity Zone, but phase 3 allowed retail first floor, residential on the upper 3 floors. So we're fortunate that we're getting the mixed use, which is what we want, because again, that's going to be the best use of our land, and even now getting a little bit into light manufacturing.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. So going back, Ellen, can you talk a little bit about the what has been catalytic in, you know, the big kind of development, the big new thing that's coming, that's not necessarily Opportunity Zone related, or, you know, physically can't be, but what you hope that could bring about? And also briefly, I know that there was an actual Opportunity Zone investment around Bristol. Maybe if you could mention a couple of things about that. But I think that, you know, there's a big thing coming in Bristol, and what do you think that's going to do, and what do you want Opportunity Zone Capital to complement that with? You're on mute.
There we go. Okay. So first of all, like you said, I will mention that there was one successful Opportunity Zone project in Southwest Virginia. It was the company Micronics, and it was located in an Opportunity Zone in neighboring Washington County. The founder and owner, I think, spoke about this in one of your earlier webinars. That was Karen Sorbin. This is a woman-owned company that designed a water purification system, and she was able to successfully utilize various funding sources, including Opportunity Zones, to bring this project to fruition. So that was definitely a big win for Southwest Virginia. I believe the other thing you were speaking about is the Bristol is now bringing a casino to town, which is going to make all kinds of differences in all kinds of ways for us. We had 2 private investors that worked with our city manager and our city council. They've been working on this for quite a while, running up the road, going to Richmond, talking with the Virginia legislature to bring the Hard Rock Resort and Casino to Bristol. The last phase of this, the last important part, was a local referendum that was held on this past election day, and I'm happy to say it passed with over 70% of yes votes. So number one, this is going to really open up a chance for Opportunity Zones. Of course, the casino itself, I don't believe is eligible, but the surrounding resort should be, so that should give them some incentives to work with. The other thing we're hoping is the casino and resort itself will bring other housing and mixed use facilities, businesses, all kinds of things. And they should be able to take advantage of the opportunity zones as well. A little bit about the Hard Rock Resort and Casino. It's going to be located at the former Bristol Mall building and grounds. That has been vacant for, I want to say 4 to 5 years now. It's just been sitting there waiting. It's in most of it was in relatively good shape. So anyway, these two local investors came in and they are going to use most of that to build, they're going to build around it for the resort and casino. It's going to include a 7-room hotel. It'll have a diverse range of dining options, bars and lounges, 100,000 square foot convention center. It'll have retail space, and they're going to hopefully use some of the retail space that's already there to, build upon it and utilize. And then there's going to be about 80,000 square feet of gaming space. That's the casino portion itself. They hope to include refilling the empty mall spaces with a mix of retailers, restaurants, and other businesses to serve the city and the expected visitors coming in. And like I said, the resort surrounding the casino should be able to utilize the opportunity zone incentives, and then it should benefit other commercial and real estate developments generated. We're going to need new housing, both new and redeveloped. We're expecting a great demand in our workforce needs, especially for that resort. Another thing I want to mention, and the casino is also going to help this. We have the Falls Plaza, which was developed, I think, 5 or 6 years ago. And it's a 140-acre retail commercial mixed-use development at Exit 5. This development has been struggling from the get-go. One of its anchor stores was Cabela's, and we lost that because it was bought out and closed down by some local competition. The biggest competition that the Falls has had is the Pinnacle, that's located like 5 miles up 81 in Tennessee. So due to that competition and the lack of incentives that we have, that development has just been struggling. So we're hoping, we've had a lot of interest as far as California recently, interest in real estate in Bristol because of the casino coming. So we're really hoping that's going to be good news for the Falls Plaza as well. Let's see. So anyway, we feel that Bristol's really on the cusp of expanding and attracting outside investors, and the opportunity zones will just be the icing on the cake for all of this new ventures.
So staying with that, I'm going to skip one question and go to the next one, just because I think this feeds into it. Ellen, what do you feel, and Peirce and Ron, I'm going to bring this in question to you. What's been the kind of reaction to opportunity zones in your community, right? Because now I think we would all recognize that this is a great opportunity to leverage the incentive because of the demand that's going to be coming in the community, things that maybe wouldn't have gotten done without it. Maybe they could have more community impact because of the incentive or whatever it might be. Do you feel like people are aligned with that? Are they aware of it? Are they interested in it? Or is there any kind of, resistance to opportunity zones, either from community or community members or otherwise?
I'll just say I talked to my city manager, about just this thing, and really, due to the limited development opportunities we have, we really would have a hard time enticing outside investors. So what we've tried to do is educate and inform our local investors about the opportunity zone. So honestly, until the casino came to fruition and is going to garner a lot more attention for the city of Bristol, opportunity zones did not really help us on the big market or outside of, the state kind of thing. But now we're hoping that we'll have a lot more opportunities to do that, especially now that the casino's here and everybody just, they're all interested in being in Bristol now. So
yeah, it's gonna be a lot of attention.
Yep.
Peirce, same question. Have people, I think one thing I noted that you said earlier was that you moved down from Baltimore and you didn't expect housing costs to be what they were, and you're concerned about housing supply, and what that often manifests in, at least what I've seen in communities, that people are worried about gentrification and being priced out. And so attracting more capital to those places often, at least as I've seen it, can generate some resistance. Is that something that you've seen, or are people excited about it? What's been the reaction?
Well, I lived in Baltimore, talking about gentrification, when we
Sure.
moved into a neighborhood where, we went to church and we moved there, and we were the only people without gray hair at the time. I've joined that club. And by the time we moved, Under Armour had put their headquarters in, the 20-somethings had taken over, and there was definitely friction amongst kind of the original, so to speak, members of that neighborhood and the new members. Harrisonburg, we have not experienced that. What I love about Harrisonburg, it's such a positive place. And there's kind of, people are genuinely excited about how the city has grown and changed. And change is not always easy, so that's not always the case either. And it doesn't come without headaches, traffic, yada, yada, and housing costs. When we identified where we wanted the 2 opportunity zones, there was no pushback. People were excited about that, 100% excited on the developer community. And as Evan pointed out, it really is about the local development community. So they were, the average citizens, it's not really on their radar all that much. I do still have some hope, we've not seen this, but that we would get some kind of purely residential product to upgrade the quality and maybe even lower the cost of housing in some of our neighborhoods. We've not seen that. I think that's kind of been the one piece missing that I would still like to see.
Thanks, Peirce. Ron, go for it.
So we are, I know there's probably some individuals sitting in the audience who are wondering, is opportunity zone activity happening? Well, we're thinking the same thing. We really don't know, because there's no administrative way to follow this. You may have an investor that's actually investing in an opportunity zone, but then the investment goes out of your area, and so there's no real way to follow up with that, to follow that kind of activity. But one thing I would encourage is that everybody keep positive and keep moving forward and think dynamically, and really kind of use that entrepreneurial abilities that you have. So one of the things that I'm involved with is that I'm connected to a group of international economists. And one day we were speaking about trade. And I said, I think that there's an opportunity here that might be being missed out on. One is that the Hampton Roads area has what's called a free trade zone. It's number 20 in the nation, and the Virginia Port Authority is the one who pretty much runs this this free trade zone. And I thought, well, if you can get trade to come to the Virginia Beach and the Hampton Roads area, it's going to filter into the rest of Virginia and the rest of the nation. So why not try to connect 2 things? We've got this foreign trade zone, we've got investors in South America, and then we've got opportunity zones. Well, if you remember, back in, I think it was the second tranche that came out, the IRS gave us the opportunity to, or gave the investors the opportunity to create what are called multi-fund organizations. So you can have an opportunity zone fund, but you can also have on the side an additional fund that is not opportunity zone related. And I thought, what, that might be an opportunity for foreign companies to infuse foreign direct investment into a community. So one of the things that we're doing that's kind of unique is that next week I'm giving a talk about foreign trade zones and how the foreign investors can invest in opportunity zones. Argentina's Lujan University is going to be hosting it, and it's really kind of designed to hit on what's called Rio de Plata area of South America, so, and which includes Brazil, which is like our 9th largest trading partner. But there's a lot of opportunity in Argentina as well. So, these are the kind of things that we're trying to do to create energy to create opportunities, because again, as I stated earlier, family trusts seem to be driving the opportunities in Virginia Beach. So why not take a family trust and combine it with a foreign investor who has this entrepreneurial ability but can't get it moving in their own country and bring it here where it has a lot of potential. So those are kind of some of the things that we're doing that are unique to try to catalyze additional activity.
Well, it's also just kudos on that, Ron, because I think it's just much more sophisticated than we're seeing other communities really think about. That's like a lot, right? And I think, at least from what we've seen across the country, and I think that this is more common in places that don't have an opportunity, Virginia as an example, that they're just trying to make sense of this thing and trying to figure out how to, one, attract local capital and then think about potentially national capital. I think the idea of international capital is not something that anybody's really thought about to this point. And so I think one of the cool things about this process and about Opportunity Virginia, like once you do have successes on that, those are things that we can communicate nationally, and that can be the blueprint and the roadmap for other communities to emulate. One thing that you mentioned that I kind of want to stay with, and you expanded on it a little bit, but the kind of question for the group, and don't take it if you don't have anything, but I wanted to give an opportunity if there's anything that you want to change about the legislation. You've got we expect to have a new administration coming in that has committed to opportunity zones. Is there anything in particular, Ron? You talked about kind of family trust and being able to see what people are doing. Is there anything in particular that you want to see changed? And Ellen and Peirce, jump in as well if there's anything that you want to add.
So one of the biggest challenges, I think, is the monitoring of this program. There's no administrative function at the locality level to try to help those projects that are moving forward. They may come in for to get their zoning rezoned, or they may have a plan that they want to implement and such. But there's really, they don't have to identify that they're an opportunity zone company, and so they'll slip through the cracks. And when I look at the Form 8996, which is the federal IRS form, that I think that's the number that goes with the opportunity zones, one of the things that I notice is that they don't ask for the how much they're investing or where they're investing. So if there was one thing that we could change, I think would be helpful, is that if we could get the IRS to start identifying where these investments are happening and then report out to us, that could be really useful and help us. Because I had a situation with when we had our open house, a young lady named Alden Cleanthus had approached me, and she had actually set up an opportunity zone with Ruth Amundsen, a NASA scientist, and for solar. And so I recognize that as an opportunity to market opportunity zones in general. And so we went out and we put a bunch of articles together and had them posted in the local newspaper and such. And that created a lot of interest. But if you don't continue to have open houses and people come and are willing to share that kind of information to catalyze and market those kind of opportunities, it makes it really difficult. So if there was a third tranche of changes, I would recommend that the IRS identify where the investments are being made and possibly tell us what type of investment it is. Is it a business or is it real estate?
Thanks, Ron. Karen, I saw just dropped a comment in kind of the Q&A and was talking about the fact that it might be challenging to get people to divulge like the specific amount of equity that they've made, or the investment that they've made, because they don't want to divulge that type of information and might not take advantage of the instant. So I guess there are a number of things to play with there. I just want to note that Karen was pointing that out. Peirce, Ellen, inviting you to jump in, but if there's
so I have two, and they both have caveats, but and I love what Ron said about the tracking. It's a little bit easier for us in a city the size of Harrisonburg than Virginia Beach, but it still would be helpful. The first one, and Aaron, I'll almost turn back on you because you certainly would probably know this better than me. But my sense is it's not really helping the hardest hit areas that it was pitched to help. So is there a way to add an extra incentive for, a West Baltimore? Harrisonburg was already a strong market. So the table was set for this to be that extra carrot, whereas maybe there's an extra incentive to make it transformative for harder hit areas where it could have greater impact. And then my second would be, and again, the caveat being, we're not exactly the venture capital hub of the US here in Harrisonburg, but we've not seen any on the business investment side of the opportunity zone. So is there a way to redefine or increase the incentive for folks that are investing in companies? Those will be my two.
I'd love to respond to both of those. I think that both of those things echo my experience or our experience nationally, Peirce. I think one of the challenges with opportunity zones is that it doesn't make, this is the thing everybody says on all these kind of conversations, it doesn't make a, they say bad deal good, right? That it can make an okay deal good or a good deal better. Bad deal, I think is a loaded phrase, because a lot of the so-called bad deals are the ones that are the ones helping low-income communities, and it's hard. It's more challenging, I think, to do deals that particularly target low-income communities, because by nature they have less money, so they spend less money, and they can afford less to pay on rent and stuff like that. And so that's been particularly challenging. One thing that I've seen, just to address that particular point, is that one of the things that's kind of been floating around both at the state level and then a federal level from legislative fixes is that having some sort of extra incentive for quote unquote community sponsored deals. So deals that either community organizations or kind of recognized intermediaries in whatever state that might be. California's been talking a lot about this because we're one of the few states that doesn't have state level capital gains tax conformity. So you don't actually get the full benefit of the opportunities on legislation in California. And so at the state level, they're talking about like, well, if you do stuff that directly, that is sponsored or supported by these particular low-income communities of color, particularly vulnerable places, et cetera, then we might give you that, the extra state level incentive or something like that. I like that idea. I think it adds a little bit more bureaucracy and it makes it a little bit more confusing. I think one of the good things about opportunity zones that it's an upside and downside is that you don't really need to check in with anybody. To Ron's point, like if there's no need to go in for zoning changes or whatever, you don't have to inform the government at all. And that has probably meant that more capital has been allocated, but at the same time, that means you can't see what's going on. Two, you can't govern whether it's actually the type of impactful investment that you want to see. So, and then the second thing I just want to agree that the fact that real estate can't move has made it a lot easier to invest in real estate as a part of opportunity zones versus businesses either have to relocate or they have to qualify or these type of things. And that makes it more challenging. And I think the thing about Micronics and carrying your business is the reason that that's such a success is because we haven't seen a ton of that happen nationally, because it's really hard to invest money in businesses that you don't know. You don't know what it's going to look like or where it's going to be in 10 years. Whereas exactly that this, the light manufacturing Peirce that you've talked about, like that's going to be there, right? That you can't move the address, right? But you can move the business. So agree on both counts and would love to see some improvements on those things. Ellen, want to give you a chance to comment on this particular thing if you want to, or pass it.
Okay, well, just real quick, I do agree with everybody said, and especially I don't think we're hitting the more distressed, smaller localities. As this webinar is all about, we're 3 years and counting into opportunity zones, and the period for maximum benefits, to achieve maximum benefits is over. I think this gave the larger, more sophisticated and experienced localities and developers and investors a distinct advantage over smaller localities with fewer resources, such as Bristol. We've kind of had to feel our way through a somewhat complex type of opportunity. So I think maybe an extended period in the beginning to achieve maximum benefits would have been beneficial, would kind of level the playing field for us, and or maybe, as y'all mentioned before, maybe a different sort of incentive is I know it's got an exact timeline kind of thing, but I think that was a little bit of an issue for us.
Also, just to echo that, I think that's the same everywhere. I think part of that was the selection of the zones themselves, right? Like there's a huge diversity, which is of course a benefit to this, but also, for example, I live in, we're based in Los Angeles, and in downtown Los Angeles, there's right outside of downtown, there's a big opportunity zone. And so if you're looking to allocate capital in Los Angeles, you're much more likely to allocate capital right next to downtown LA where there's growth and all this kind of stuff than do it in South Central Los Angeles or outside of LA or whatever, where there's much more need. And I think you can probably extrapolate that point nationally, whereas it's probably harder, at least up until very recently, Ellen, congratulations on that, to find a reason to allocate capital in Bristol as opposed to what it might be in Virginia Beach or Harrisonburg or New York City or Los Angeles, right? And so it's like not a competitive playing field, but the problem is the incentive is equal in all those different places, and the attraction to those places of capital is not equal. So, I think maybe potentially I would have preferred, and I wouldn't have said this at the time, maybe fewer zones that are more targeted, or different levels of the type of incentive that come with them based on where they are, right? There should be a higher incentive to invest in Bristol than there is in, Hell's Kitchen in New York City, for example, or whatever it might be. That's just my thought.
Can I add something, Aaron?
Yeah, please do, Ron.
Sure. Thank you. So, until we can get into the investor's mind and try to figure out what it is that catalyzes that mind to invest in an opportunity zone, we're really kind of spinning our wheels. I think Harrisonburg, if they're layering other incentives on top of their opportunity zones, that's definitely one way to do it. But I think you hit on this earlier. You kind of alluded to it, and that is an investor when they invest on Wall Street. What do they have at their hands? Well, they have all these corporate reports. They have all this data, all this historical information about these businesses. When somebody is trying to start up a new business in an opportunity zone, there is no historical data. So, collectively as opportunity zone marketers, we need to be thinking about how to get beyond that hurdle and try to help these entrepreneurs, because there are some entrepreneurs out there that have some great ideas that can be really successful. It's just that the investors won't move because there's no historical background to give them confidence to invest in this. Whereas Wall Street they have their risks too, but the risks seem to be less than opportunity zone businesses.
Just to add, Karen made a point in the Q&A about, and this is not directly aligned with it, but I think it makes the same point, which is like business incubators for low-income startups. The idea is that, talk about leveling the playing field, you need to equip these investors, entrepreneurs, et cetera, with the ability to level the playing field, either between them and what they're trying to do and an attractive real estate investment in New York City, or even a different type of business to prepare them to actually attract this capital, in the same way that, they can get data and have, more transparency and more information that you're talking about, Ron. So thanks for making that point. I want to close with one question for you all, but before that, I just want to address one more question that Karen put in. So the question is, could an opportunity zone fund that invests in real estate also invest in, in the business itself, the Series A investment, given that they would be a lessee? My read is absolutely yes. I don't think it's certainly possible to do opportunity zone capital, opportunity zone equity capital is opportunity zone equity capital. And if they're allocating money, you see this in traditional venture capital investing, that folks will invest in the company and the underlying real estate in the company, whatever that might be. But I haven't seen it a ton in opportunity zone investing because it's just been so focused on real estate. So it could happen. I haven't seen it necessarily happen just myself. But thank you for the questions. The thing I want to close with, because we have 5 minutes left, I want to talk about resources that you've availed yourself of kind of at the state level, and then obviously also from our friends at Opportunity Virginia. What have you been able? What is useful there? What has been super helpful? What do you want? What's in process? Stuff like that. So I think I'll jump to Peirce just because I saw you nodding. If you'd like to take that.
Yeah. So a few things to your question here. As I mentioned earlier, the historic tax credit, our folks have certainly taken advantage of to stack the capital. Another one that our friends put together, the Opportunity Exchange. So we put our potential projects up there. Sometimes can be misleading. Folks think that the government owns it, but while it hasn't led to an outside capital investment, it has led to a lot of inquiries. Having these projects on the Opportunity Exchange, and long term, you never know when an inquiry is going to turn into a transaction. So the exposure provided there has been very helpful. And then, lastly, about our friends at Opportunity Virginia, that the two most critical things that have helped our opportunity zones be successful. Number two, I would say we got out early with the prospectus and really marketed that prospectus hard for a year. But the number one most valuable thing that drove our opportunity zones was Becca and Opportunity Virginia coming to Harrisonburg and doing a workshop. So we had great attendance at that workshop. It really made people focus on it instead of just kind of hearing us talk about it or post about it. And we got our local development community in that room. So our first project that actually happened because somebody in that room said, "Oh, I just learned about this. You should check it out." The developer themselves were not able to attend, but another one did. That has really helped spread the word because it spread it directly to the folks that we wanted to hear it the most.
Thanks, Peirce. What a great plug. Ron, how about you?
Yeah, so I'm going to elevate her to superstar status with you, Aaron Thomas. Becca Richardson is awesome. She will come to you and she will do what's necessary to help you to transact that opportunity zone opportunity. We had a few months ago, before COVID, we had about 8 or 9 different people who were interested in opportunity zones. And when you bring somebody in from Opportunity Virginia and the client that's sitting across from them knows that they're representing the governor, this brings integrity, it brings credibility, it brings all those good things that help you to move projects forward. Now, we don't know whether they've moved forward because again, we don't have a way of tracking them, but Becca has done a terrific job for us and we really appreciate all her work and all that she will do in the future as well. And Jay too, I mean, the whole team, Valerie, they are just exceptional people with a laser focus on opportunity zones.
Thanks, Ron. Wholeheartedly agree. She's the real superstar. I don't know what Jay was talking about. Let's be honest. Ellen, close us out on this one.
Okay, I'll try to be quick, but yeah, she was on my list as well. Becca, she did 2 presentations for us, which was awesome. One was in person and one was via Zoom. But she was able to explain everything and to everybody that was in the room, which was totally helpful. And she's on call all the time. She's answered any questions I've had. I did want to mention, as far as other state resources, right now we have an application in for a housing needs assessment and a small area plan from Virginia Housing. They used to be VHDA, and we should be getting word anytime soon. We're hoping we'll get a grant to do those studies for us. And the other thing too is that probably plays into this is we've been successful in getting some grants for, this is both state and federal grants for environmental assessments, so that some of the properties that we do have will be ready to go on if we get some interest in them. So anyway, we've had a lot of assistance throughout the process.
Awesome, thank you. Well, we just bumped up against 11 a.m. my time, 2 p.m. I think you all's time. Want to just thank, first of all, our panelists, of course. Hopefully we can get this little motley crew together in person again next year. Ron, Peirce, good to see you again and look forward to seeing you again next year. Ellen, thanks for joining us. Congratulations on all you've all done. And Ellen, we get to check in a year from now. Ron and Peirce, we get to check in after 2 years. Hopefully we can just keep this thing going. Jay, with your permission. And of course, Jay, Val, Becca, Chance, the Opportunity Virginia team, thank you for having me and for giving us this platform and for taking the time. I'll pass it to you, Jay, or if you want to close.
Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. Won't try to take us too long past 2 p.m. Eastern here, but thanks for that informative session. I see that Becca was an attendee, but in case she has it on mute, I'm gonna be comments about her for her. Still, regardless, I think she's ineligible for this year's MVP. So after the final session next week, we'll take a vote. And Aaron, I feel like you're going to be in a good, strong position this year as well.
No, I don't know why you're so kind to me.
So thanks to all the attendees. Thanks for those who sent in questions. I think that was mostly Karen, who I'm behind the scenes texting and emailing with as well. And thank you to our panelists, Ellen, Ron, Peirce. We look forward to continuing to work with you and your communities in the months and years ahead, especially and hopefully under more traditional, healthy circumstances. So last two things. As I said at the beginning, everybody's going to be getting an email next week. It's going to have the video recording of this session and all of the other sessions. And there will also be additional resources. And then if you'd like to contact our team, learn more about Virginia's Opportunity Zones, or register for the final webinar that's next week, please visit our website, opportunityvirginia.org. And that's it. Thanks again, everybody, for attending.